Welcome to What's Happening. My name is Michael Lach, Executive Director of the nonprofit Harwich Conservation Trust. And we have with us here today two walk leaders. On my far left, we have Todd Kelley. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you. Good morning.
On my immediate left, we have Marcus Hendricks. Welcome, Marcus.
Hello.
And they're a great duo leading a number of Native American history, early colonial history, and natural history, wildlife behavior and reflections walks throughout the months of June, July, August, and September. And the title of these walks is interesting, Native Nightlife Walks. I love that. And it centers around the time of the full moon on each of those months. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And what is it about the native nightlife walk idea that really sparked an interest in each of you? Is it the time of day? I hear the nightlife part of that description.
So we like to incorporate all the fun and interesting things around the moon, the full moon phase, and how that correlates with the natural world and the people and what they would be doing in those particular times and the seasons, and focusing on the playfulness of being out in nature, and what they would eat, where they would travel.
The first people.
Yes, and the experiences they have, with the full moon, whole in general.
And these take place in the National Seashore, which is fantastic because that's such a wonderful diversity of habitats and wildlife and history. Right. And this is a partnership walk not only among the both of you, but also the Eastham Conservation Foundation, Harwich Conservation Trust, putting this all together. And not only is it the human history aspect, but wildlife as well at that time of day. Right. Todd, do you want to speak to that?
Well, the thing about the moon is we've kind of given up things that really connect us to the time of year we're at. Traditionally, like solstice celebrations and things like that, they really bind you or connect you to what's going on in the natural world around you at that very time. And that's what these walks do, is because we progress through different moons, and as the summer progresses, at the beginning of the summer, it's like, oh yeah, it's summer. And then when you get to the end, you really feel that it's the end of the summer and it's not a gloom. It's just like, okay, we're making a transition. And it's the same with wildlife. We'll watch that where, like blueberries and such are flowering and starting to become blueberries. But then as migratory birds show, they're already nesting. And then they'll be progressively leaving as we progress. Laughing gulls in the fall will be gone and such like that. So we can actually, the moon really connects us to that rhythm of natural order, if you will, and that we're not separate from it. And in cultures, both with native culture and really old Cape Cod, they would have known that. It was, you would have been, your daily life would have been really about what you needed to do at that time.
Yes, certainly. I think it's very interesting how we start in the kickoff of the spring thaw walk, and it just dovetails the rest of the moons because this thing's happening. There's so many working parts that are going out in the ecosystem in Mother Earth, and the whole transitioning of where animals are, where do they reside, where are they hanging out, what foods do they eat. It's very interesting, the ospreys come back, the alwai, and the herring, the bluebacks following, and then the stripers and all the different food, the abundance of food, and where people will be orchestrated depending on the location of the natural resources.
That's fascinating. So these walks, they take place around the time, each month in June, July, August, and September. So the June walk takes place June 17th, around the time of the strawberry moon, and the July walk, July 15th, around the time of the buck moon. August 19th is the sturgeon moon, and then September 16th is the harvest moon. Now, the different names of those moons are interesting. Tell us more about where those originate.
Yeah, the moons themselves are telling you the progressive changes. Strawberry moon is like, oh, okay, the strawberries, it's time to pick the strawberries. And then the buck moon is when the bucks have, deer drop their antlers around February every year. they shed their antlers, and they've grown back by that time in July where they're as large as they're going to be, but they're still in velvet. So the bone is actually squishy. If you could go up and touch one, it's kind of moist and squishy. It's fuzzy, it's velvet, because the bone hasn't calcified into. So their antlers are as big as they've gotten, they'll be for that season, but they're still in the velvet. And then as you progress to sturgeon, it's when there's times of the fish are gathering.
Sturgeon is fish.
Fish, yeah.
Okay.
And we would have had them here, and Marcus can talk to that.
Wow.
Yes, yes. So we don't want to give too much away, but it's very interesting to come out and see what we have to offer, the wealth of knowledge of Todd and I, and then it's interesting to interact with the people that come out on the walks, because they have very good questions, you know, and you know they offer their stories of Cape Cod and what they did growing up, and you know it's a good networking, you know, checking out the flora and fauna. We talk a little bit about glaciers and how the Cape was created, and then you know just the natural world balance. I incorporate the five different senses of being out in the wilderness, and you know we talk about the clam bakes that were happening on Cape Cod, and you know harvesting different shellfish life, and you know chasing the fish.
Wow.
So.
And each of these walks per person is $20 per person, right? Folks can register online at harwichconservationtrust.org, the website, and then upon registration, they'll receive an email with directions telling them where in the National Seashore in Eastham to meet. And the June, July, and August walks start at 6. They start at that transition time, right? From diurnal to crepuscular.
Yes.
And then by the time you finish, about 2 hours later, it's really moving into the nocturnal time for wildlife. Tell us about that middle word, that crepuscular.
Well,
what does crepuscular mean?
Yeah, the crepuscular is dawn and dusk. So I like to call them, they're the swing shifts. So you have the day shift, diurnal. Those are like your squirrels that'll go to bed. The crepuscular is dawn and dusk, so they're up actually before dawn. They're already deer are on the move, fox, coyote are on the move. Pretty much everybody's kind of laying down in the middle of the day. Nocturnal shift, the night shift, they're still sleeping. And then toward the afternoon, the deer are up and moving and progressing into where they're going to be, where they want to be at night to feed. So there it is. There's a lot going on. Of course, in the bug world, things are going on. You know, usually in the dawn and dusk is when the bugs are going to be the most. But that's when you know, different birds, the tree swallows, the flycatchers are going to catch those bugs. But going into the night, that's why it's tough to. We can't do it actually the time of the moon because we just can't fit it in. We try to fit our structured schedules into the natural order. That's kind of showing us that the natural world doesn't abide by this you know structured order of everything fitting in a box. And the moons is what helps us to kind of come back to that, where it's at that time. Even if it falls on a different day of the month, it doesn't matter. It's that time. And really, in the natural world, fish will be moving. Birds know to move. They're knowing to migrate. So as we progress through the summer, you know, the migratory shorebirds they're off the nest. Their young have fledged. And
right around July, early July, right?
July, they're actually starting to move.
Most people are kind of coming on down to the Cape. Birds, some of the migratory shorebirds
are moving, and then
amazing? Others
are coming here. They're not leaving the Cape or the Northeast. They're actually going out and foraging for food.
Right.
And then when we get to the harvest moon, actually birds migrating across the country are actually in sync with agriculture. Because they're going to places they know there's going to be food. And so there are going to be birds that, obviously the young will be up in the mix now, and the adults might be somewhere in Western Mass or something, even gone back up into the northern part of New England a little, while it's still warm, to feed, to take advantage of all the food. And then they'll leave. And so just noticing that in the rhythms of the earth is rhythms of the seasons. It's, you know, again, cultures would really abide by that. They'd live in harmony with that. And you'd just be naturally prepared for it. I mean, it's like, no, we didn't, you know, we did that before. Now it's, we have to do this now. We have to take care of these things.
Yes, it kind of goes in sync with circadian rhythm and you know, the sunlight and animals needing to eat have proper nourishment throughout the day while the sunlight is out. And one of the fascinating things is the vista overlooking it. It's just wonderful. We've caught the moon and the sunrise at the same time. That was fascinating. Overlooking Nantucket Sound at Coast Guard Beach. You know, and the people we meet that come on the walks are just amazing. They're just, you know, you wouldn't think they'd be in the community because we're so spread out. But when we come together, it's kind of like our annual meeting, you know, and you know, the camaraderie and just the people that, you know, follow us are very awesome.
So, and it sounds like a variety of landscapes that you walk through during this roughly 2-hour time span. Sounds like you take in a vista of the Atlantic, right, as the moon may be rising, sun is setting off to the west behind you. And then tell me a little bit more. Do you make your way through some woodland? Or?
Yeah, we're through just that. We're through woodland. Salt marsh and really freshwater. It's freshwater pouring into it, so it's an estuary. So again, there's a lot going on as we progress through the season because, you know, the birds have arrived and now they're already on the nest. As we progress, they'll be leaving, as we said. The trees, the flora and fauna, or the flora will you know, change, go from blooming, the berries and stuff. Birds will eat the blueberries and other foods. They also, again, about nesting is that they come here and if the leaves haven't leafed out, they can't nest. So they're really active, establishing territory. But now as we progress, they'll get more quiet. And the other thing is that when the young start to show up, if you're a birder, it gets kind of tough to, or more difficult to see like a young red-winged blackbird. We've been listening to them and they're very visible and they're obvious. And then you see the young in the mix, hopping along the marsh trying to get bugs, and it's like, well, what is that? And it's just the progression. It's like, in a modern analogy, it's like, okay, it's the end of summer, it's time, kids back to school. And the wildlife will do that as well, is that it's time to move on as a family unit, like coyotes, the young pups get older. By November, the males will break out of the family unit and search for mates. So there's a lot going on in the natural world that we really get to witness if we just take the time to look at that. And that's what we try to do, is we try to set the stage from the different vistas to get us to think about those things. And then even into night, what are people doing at night, you know?
All while daytime is transitioning to that twilight to the nighttime. That's very interesting. And the first people, Marcus, at that time of day, would they be like settling into storytelling, or is there a strong oral tradition that originates at that time of day? Or
Yes, I mean, you know, after a wonderful clam bake or harvesting shellfish, or you know, bringing in the nets from setting out the fish weirs, drying racks, smoking racks, you'd have a nice night fire, and you know, you have the community all together, and you know, the elders would come and tell their stories, and the children and you know, everyone else in the community would come together and talk about what wonderful things that they came across the day. Yeah. So.
Wow. Well, it's going to be a wonderful set of walks. People can register for each of the walks if they want. $20 each, again, for each of those walks. HarwichConservationTrust.org. They can find all the details about the June Native Nightlife Walk and the other walks in July, August, and September in the National Seashore with Marcus and Todd. We hope you can find time to visit us, join us on these walks, learn more about the history of the first people and early colonists, and also the wildlife around us. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, my name is Michael Lach. So glad to have here with us Marcus Hendricks and Todd Kelley. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining What's Happening. We'll see you next time.